Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a man who murdered an army veteran from Annan is handed a life sentence with a minimum of 37 years. Father of two, Paul Taylor, was subjected to a violent attack at the hands of 20-year-old Jack Crawley, who was described in court as a highly dangerous young man. Also on tonight's programme, Duncan Ferguson has been sacked as the manager of Inverness Caledonian Thistle.
I've done the very best I can for the club and for my players. I've always tried to support my players behind the scenes, and they all know that.
The League One side went into administration yesterday following financial difficulties. We hear from the woman whose best friend stole nearly £86,000 from a charity set up in memory of her daughter.
Everybody loved and trusted her. Nobody can believe that this has happened.
Hello, welcome to Beechgrove.
Beechgrove Garden presenter Jim McCall has died at the age of 89. Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. Paul Taylor was a former veteran, a father of two, who lived in Annan in Dumfriesshire. His wife Maria said they had plans to grow old together. Today, a court heard how that had all been taken away from them. It came as Mr Taylor's killer, 20-year-old Jack Crawley, was sentenced to life with a minimum of 37 years for his murder. Crawley went on to try to kill another man while on bail. Mark Denton reports.
The Dumfriesshire town of Annan, home of Paul Taylor. His family described him as a true gentleman, but the army veteran was murdered by Jack Crawley, a man only just in his 20s now. Today he starts a prison sentence that will leave him behind bars until he's nearly 60. Paul Taylor was approaching that age when Crawley brutally murdered him. 7 months later, he led police to Paul's remains at Finlandrig Woods near Carlisle. They'd met on the dating app Grindr. Crawley claimed he was in debt to a drugs gang and was trying to steal Paul Taylor's car. He said he'd punched Paul, who was fatally injured by accident. The jury didn't believe him. Crawley was found guilty of Paul's murder and the attempted murder of a man near York, who he also met on a dating site. Sentencing Jack Crawley today, the judge, the Honourable Mr Justice Goose, said that Paul Taylor had been killed in a murder for gain because Jack Crawley wanted to steal his car. He said it had been shocking to hear what he did to Paul Taylor, who was murdered with brutal and exceptionally severe violence.
The murder is aggravated in its seriousness because, firstly, it involved a significant degree of planning, arranging to meet Mr Taylor and pretending that you wanted consensual sex, and taking a hammer with you. Secondly, the severity of the violence used, with repeated heavy blows to the head and face, counted by the pathological evidence as a minimum of 10.
In a victim impact statement read on her behalf in court, Paul Taylor's widow Maria said, "Our lives and world are completely torn apart. We had plans to grow old together. This has all been taken away from us." Mark Denton, Reporting Scotland, Carlisle Crown Court.
Duncan Ferguson has been sacked as manager of Inverness Caledonian Thistle as administrators take over the running of the Highland Football Club. The insolvency experts have been brought in with the business in financial crisis. Other staff and players are expected to find out their futures tomorrow. Our reporter Ian McInnes has spent the day at the Caledonian Stadium.
It was the morning after the night before as administrators and club officials arrived here at the stadium first thing, with tough decisions ahead in the fight to save this club, the future of playing and non-playing staff on the line.
We understand that the administrators are now meeting with the players up there on the first floor, and we expect there'll be more comings and goings as the day goes on.
The players are being supported by union officials from PFA Scotland as they await news on their future. But this is in many ways about business, and the next to arrive at the stadium was the financial consultant Alan Savage.
Just wondering how you're feeling ahead of this, obviously administrators now in.
I'm just going to try and find out what the details are going to be.
Are you confident that the club can be saved?
Of course I am, yeah.
Are you the man who's going to save it? Will you come in after this?
I'm not Superman, no. But I'm going to give it my best shot and give us help where I can.
In the boardroom here, administrators are poring over the club's finances, with big decisions ahead.
They'll go through the books and they'll tell us tomorrow, so we've been told that tomorrow's the day.
How do the players feel about that? They're obviously in a similar position to you.
Yeah, they're obviously all worried, aren't they? It's not great in there at the moment, it's not a good atmosphere. But, you know, we'll wait and see what tomorrow brings.
The players headed off as normal for training with talks ongoing, while non-playing staff continued as they have to keep the club going.
The team have not long come back from training and the manager Duncan Ferguson wasn't in the building for long. It appears he may have got the news he feared was coming.
And before long it was confirmed. Ferguson and his staff would be leaving.
Of course, administration, there's going to be job losses, aren't there? And I'm obviously in the front line of that because I'm the manager. It's brutal, isn't it? It's really tough, you know, to get a 15-point deduction. It all depends now how deeply they cut the playing squad. If we can manage to stay in the division, I think it's possible. I think I brought a lot of good players to the club. There'll be a big assets to the club in the future. So yeah, I think the club can stay in the division if they hold on to their players. If not, it's going to be a tough ask.
Talks are ongoing here tonight, but it appears the cuts won't stop there. Players and non-playing staff are expected to hear about their futures tomorrow. Ian McInnes reporting Scotland in Inverness.
Lindsay McCallum stole £86,000 from a charity which her best friend had set up in memory of her daughter who died of cancer. Now her victim and former friend Angela McVicker says she believes the crimes were fuelled by greed, vanity and narcissism. McCallum is beginning a 3-year jail term after pleading guilty to 2 counts of fraud. Angela says she feels hurt and betrayed and it's tarnished her daughter Joanna's legacy. Suzanne Allen spoke to her.
Our friendship was intense. She used to joke that we had a brain between us, you know, that we shared a brain.
Angela McVicker and Lindsay McCallum's friendship was exceptionally close.
Even when one of us was on holiday, we would speak, you know, 3-4 times a day, every day we would speak.
They met in 1996 through Angela's daughter Joanna, who had leukaemia and worked with stem cell charity, the Anthony Nolan Trust, where Lindsay was a fundraiser.
It's a lovely photograph.
Oh, I don't like that one.
Joanna, seen here in a documentary, was a well-known campaigner, signing up celebrities like Robbie Williams to the donor register. The friends grew close, and when Joanna died, Lindsay asked to read the eulogy at her funeral. A few years later, they set up Rainbow Valley, a charity to help people going through cancer, in Joanna's memory. After Lindsay left in 2022, Joanna's sister Kendall, who worked in the office, discovered the fraud. After an initial denial, Lindsay came clean.
She says, I'm sorry, Angela, I've let everybody down, but she was just trying to be really soft with me. And I said, I don't know what you're going to do. I said, I don't know.
Angela went to the police the next day, and a few months later, Lindsay was arrested. She'd taken almost £86,000 from Rainbow Valley and another £9,000 from the Anthony Nolan Trust, spending it on clothes and expensive gifts. Last week, Falkirk Sheriff Court heard McCallum forge signatures of charity staff and rerouted cash from fundraising accounts for her own use between 2011 and 2021. The thefts were brazen. Kendall worked in the office, often sitting just a few feet away from Lindsay.
My youngest daughter, Kendall, who was in the office, you know, she pointed out, when you look at the times that she was taking, man, she said she was sitting in the office with us. She was sitting in the office, transferring the money, while I was sitting across from her, working.
Why do you feel she did it?
Vanity and greed. She wanted to, she already was comfortable, but she liked really nice, expensive clothes, and she wanted to live a higher lifestyle than she had.
Do you think it started off as a friendship that was a genuine friendship, then she changed, or do you think she always set out with the intention to defraud?
I think she always set out with the intention to defraud, because it's happened for years. It's happened for a long time.
Throughout the whole time that you ran the charity?
Yeah.
Rainbow Valley is flourishing, according to Angela. Changes have been made and routine questioning of decisions, even if senior staff are encouraged. But the feelings of betrayal remain.
Everybody loved and trusted her. Nobody can believe that this has happened. The hurt and betrayal that's under the surface that people don't realise is quite hard. Even now, she's tarnished Joanna's legacy. That hurts.
Suzanne Allen, reporting Scotland.
To some of the day's other stories now. Police say a 56-year-old man has been charged after another man died in Hamilton in South Lanarkshire. 36-year-old William Copeland was found with serious injuries in the Burbank Centre area on Monday afternoon and died at the scene. A 59-year-old man who was also found with serious injuries was taken to hospital. The nationalised Ferguson shipyard has made it through to a short list of bidders to build 7 small ferries for CalMac. The Port Glasgow yard is among 6 firms invited to tender for the contract, having passed the pre-qualification stage. The firm believes the order, potentially worth £175 million, could help it move forward after years of controversy over construction of 2 much larger and complex CalMac ships. Now, he shared his passion for gardening with viewers for more than 4 decades, and to many, he was the Beechgrove Garden. Former colleagues on that programme were among those paying tribute today to the broadcaster Jim McCall, who's died at the age of 89. They described him as a local hero first and a Scottish national treasure. Our reporter Phil McDonald looks back at his life.
Hello. Last autumn, a group of us here at the BBC in Aberdeen started work on a project which we hope will, over the coming weeks, become a regular part of your viewing.
To many, the face and voice of Scottish gardening for more than 40 years. Jim McCall's passion for planting and potting shone through. His on-screen partnership with George Barron became a perhaps surprise hit with audiences. The Beechgrove Garden grew in popularity and is still shown across the BBC network to this day.
Welcome, Carol.
Different presenters joined the cast over the years, but Jim McCall was evergreen.
His ability to gather information, complex information, and make it very simple and pass it on, through television to the amateur gardener, it was a gift. I mean, the man was gifted when it came to presenting on television. He was just, unique. A national treasure, we sometimes say, but I think he was.
Jim McCall's roots were in Ayrshire, where he grew up and went to college. He moved to Aberdeenshire in the early 70s and became something of a local hero.
I think I'll just remember forever the twinkle in his eye and the spring in his step and his absolute genuine love of gardening and the people who surrounded him.
I mean, what does gardening mean to you?
Well, it's just half my life.
5 years ago, at the age of 83, he decided it was time to leave the Beechgrove Garden. But he refused to hang up his trowel for good and promised to continue gardening at home. Jim's family say he will be hugely missed, not only by them, but by his friends, colleagues and a nation who he shared his passion for gardening with over 4 decades.
Phil McDonald reporting there on the death of Jim McCall, who's died at the age of 89. A high-ranking member of NHS staff has rejected accusations of a cover-up over infection outbreaks at the largest hospital in Scotland. A public inquiry looking into the construction of the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital campus in Glasgow and safety issues experienced by patients has also heard from families of those affected who've criticised the Health Board for a lack of transparency and honesty. Our health correspondent Lisa Summers reports.
During 2018 and 19, events at the hospital were never far from the headlines. Reports on patient deaths and links to pigeon droppings, infection outbreaks in the child cancer wards that saw them closed. Today, the Director of Communications for the Health Board defended the way the organisation dealt with the incidents.
And I think if you look at all of those communications, I think you will see that we have been open and transparent about the situation that we found ourselves in, about the impact it was having on patients and regrettable, and families, and about the efforts that we were taking to try and understand the issues and then mitigate them.
Affected patients and families have been highly critical of the way the Health Board communicated with them over what was happening. That includes the family of Gail Armstrong. She died after contracting a cryptococcus infection linked to pigeon droppings. Her daughter Sandy was asked about the issue today.
There have been a lot of omissions and a massive lack of transparency around many issues. It was pretty appalling, yeah.
Ms Bastillo accepted that there were issues with the way the board communicated with families, but she said that there was no deliberate concealment or misrepresentation of information. But in her written statement, she said leaks of internal documents to politicians and journalists eroded trust, and she said unjustly resulted in accusations of cover-up. The inquiry here in front of Lord Brodie in Edinburgh continues tomorrow. Lisa Summers reporting Scotland. A Scotland Office Minister has pulled out of an online event in support of presidential candidate Kamala Harris that's taking place on the night of the US election. It comes after a day of intense scrutiny about how the UK Labour Party is approaching the election in the States, with questions about impartiality and interference being posed by the Trump campaign. Well, let's get more on this now with our political correspondent Andrew Kerr. Andrew, so what was this event that Kirsty McNeil was due to be talking at then?
Yes, Laura, an online blogger spotted that Miss McNeil was due to speak at this event on the 5th of November called Come On Kamala, Smash the Ceiling. Now, Kirsty McNeil is a UK government minister, a Scotland Office minister, and on the face of it, the British government usually observes strict impartiality rules when it comes to foreign elections, in particular the US election. They don't like to be seen to be interfering in supporting one candidate in particular. That's why there were questions about Miss McNeil's involvement. Now, her spokesman told me that she was invited purely in a personal capacity. We understand she has since withdrawn from the event, and the webpage advertising it has now been amended.
And as you touched on there, though, it does feed into the wider question about Labour's involvement in this election.
It does indeed, and there's been somewhat of a feeding frenzy today about Labour and the US election. The Prime Minister has been under a lot of intense pressure today to emphasise his neutrality, and it's a really significant issue as well. Now, the Trump campaign has complained to the US Federal Election Commission about Labour organising supporters to come over to the US and support the Harris campaign. Now, the SNP were saying that Labour should just get off the fence and say they want Harris to win. The Conservatives were saying that Labour should focus on the day job and not get naively caught up in a foreign election. Labour have long assisted the Democrats, Laura, but this is now perhaps threatening Britain's relationship with the United States, with Donald Trump, if he does become the US president at a time when Sir Keir Starmer has been trying to build bridges with him.
Yeah, not long till we find out now. OK, thank you, Andrew. Over 1,300 protected birds of prey, including rare and threatened species, have been killed in the UK in the last 15 years, according to the RSPB. More than a third of those were in Scotland. Investigators say many were poisoned or shot and blamed the majority of incidents on rogue gamekeepers.
The numbers that we document, although these are confirmed cases, they really represent what we'd have to call the tip of an iceberg. And we're really just scratching the surface in presenting the numbers of crimes we know about. Many more will go undocumented.
Well, in politics, it is pretty rare when there's consensus on something, but there was in the Commons earlier, as MPs on both sides of the House came together to praise the bravery of Sir Chris Hoy in going public on his terminal cancer diagnosis. The First Minister, John Swinney, had previously applauded the exceptional courage of Scotland's most successful Olympian.
Mr Speaker, I know the whole House will join me in sending our best wishes to Sir Chris Hoy and his wife, Zara. He is a true sporting legend, and the courage and positivities they have shown will inspire many others.
Can I join the Deputy Prime Minister in paying tribute to the bravery of Sir Chris Hoy? He truly is an inspiration to us all.
Yeah, it shows you that sporting achievement and people like Sir Chris Hoy, they do cut through, don't they, to the wider public and politics. Anyway, things are underway in Italy, aren't they?
Absolutely, a really big night in Europe for Celtic tonight. It is a big week of European football, of course. It's that stage of the season where the schedule's getting really cramped for the clubs, so big games ahead. Thanks very much, Laura. Cheers now. Hello there, yes, well, Celtic are back in Champions League action for the first time since that 7-1 defeat to Borussia Dortmund, and so far they're holding firm in Italy. Now, ahead of their Europa League tie tomorrow night, Philippe Clement insists that Rangers are still on the right track and says constantly changing manager is not the answer for the club. Defeat by Kilmarnock has left Rangers 6 points behind Celtic and Aberdeen at the top of the Premiership as they prepare to take on Steaua Bucharest at Ibrox, and he's urged supporters to help them move forward.
The fans will see the next months that this team will become better. But the more they stick behind the team, the more they are positive, the more they are supporting, the more they give the team energy, the faster it will go also. But we understand also from our side that the fans need to see also things on the pitch. So we were not happy with the performance in that way against Kilmarnock. All of us were not happy about that. And I don't want to hide behind excuses of the kind of pitch. It's kind of a reason, but I don't want to use that. Not before the game, not after the game. So we're gonna keep on working hard to make things better as fast as possible.
Sticking with European football and Hearts are Scotland's third remaining team in European competition. Neil Critchley's side follow their last gasp away win over Dynamo Minsk with a home match in the UEFA Conference League tomorrow against Omonia Nicosia, a 5:45 kick-off for that one. The Cypriots also won their opening tie, and despite sitting in 6th place in their domestic league and having failed to find the net in their last 2 games, Critchley is an admirer of the Tynecastle visitors' appetite for attack.
They like to dominate the games with possession. And they have different ways of building up and playing the game, and some really exciting attacking players, wide players and 9s and 10s, and I wouldn't expect them to come here and park the bus and have everyone behind the ball. Their natural way is to have the ball, so we know we'll have to be good without the ball, but I want us to be a team that tries to dominate possession, no matter who we're playing against.
Finally, to rugby, and Scotland head coach Gregor Townsend says he's angry and disappointed that Bordeaux's Johnny Gray is not available for selection at next month's Autumn Internationals. Townsend has made Glasgow Warriors centre Sione Tuipulotu captain for the test matches against Fiji, South Africa, Portugal and Australia at Murrayfield, but he told the Scottish Rugby podcast that he wasn't best pleased that Gray would miss out.
It's disappointing that a player that we believe is playing really well, obviously has played so well for us in the past. He's came back from a really tough injury. He'd missed almost 18 months with that injury, but it's played every single game for Bordeaux this season and played very well in the big games. La Rochelle at the weekend, Toulouse a couple of weeks before. So yeah, he would have been really in the mix, not just for our squad, but our match day 23. So it's disappointing that both Johnny and Bordeaux believe the best thing for him is to rest after the 2 months of rugby.
And that full interview in the latest episode of the Scottish Rugby Podcast is available later tonight on BBC Sounds. And before I go, I must update, still goalless in Bergamo. So Celtic fans will be on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, we'll see if it stays that way. And I'm sure you'll have an update on the 9 later.
Certainly will. More reaction there tonight.
Good, I'll let you go and we'll watch it then.
Cheers,
Lewis.
Laura.
Thank you. OK, now it is Wednesday night, so it is debate night. It's in Glasgow tonight, and here's Stephen Jardine with more details.
Debate night is in Glasgow this evening, and our studio audience here will put their questions to Fulton McGregor from the SNP, Johanna Baxter from Scottish Labour, Annie Wells from the Scottish Conservatives, antiques expert Natasha Raskin-Sharp, and the CEO of Street Soccer Scotland social entrepreneur David Duke. That's debate night with me from Glasgow, 10:30 on the BBC Scotland channel.
And now Christopher is here with the details. Is it going to stay like this for all of us for the rest of the month?
It's, well, not the rest of the month, but certainly the mild weather we've had around today, Laura. More of that again tomorrow. Beautiful picture there from one of our weather watchers in the southwest of the country,
Gorgeous.
not far from Stranraer. Temperatures in the mid-teens, and as I say, more of that on the way once again tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed. Good evening to you. We've had a pretty decent day of weather, a lot of cloud around at times with a few spots of light rain and some sunshine coming through as we saw. But tonight, the wind's really picking up around the west coast, close to gale force here through the Minches and across the Hebrides, with some outbreaks of rain across the Western Isles. Elsewhere, cloudy, the odd spot of light rain and mild. Temperatures overnight, 10, 11 Celsius for most at their lowest. To tomorrow, we've got that weather front still with us, but it's sort of stationary really across the Western Isles. Ahead of it, it's drier, but we've got a southerly wind dragging in some pretty warm air, so it will be another mild day, but for many, another cloudy day. Now, you can see we've got that rain towards the Western Isles. Once again, gale force gusts here. Elsewhere, it's a breezy day, blustery at times, with that cloud beginning to thin and break into the afternoon, and there'll be some brighter moments developing, certainly to the lee of high ground, to the north of hills. And in the brightness, up to around 15 degrees, 1 or 2 spots warmer than that, perhaps towards the Murray coast, the northeast of Aberdeenshire, Caithness as well. But you can see towards the Minches there, certainly across the Western Isles, pretty wet with that weather front still in play. And then tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, that wet weather beginning to work its way southwards. The wind's easing off and then mixing with an area of low pressure towards the southwest. So for Friday, it's cloudy and damp across southwest Scotland. Elsewhere, cloudy, the odd spot of rain. Brighter skies in the northwest, beginning to push in, perhaps in towards Inverness later in the day. Temperatures in the north, 11, 12 degrees further south, still mid-teens, but lighter winds on Friday. That takes us to the weekend, and all eyes out west with weather fronts moving in off the Atlantic. That means cloud and rain. Here's Saturday, here's the rain. It's quite heavy actually in the northwest. It moves south and east through the day, reaching most parts. 11 to 13 Celsius, breezy from the west. And then on Sunday, some heavy, sharp showers in the north. Elsewhere, cloudy with some patchy outbreaks of rain at times. And temperatures for most around 10 to 13 Celsius by mid-afternoon. That's the forecast for now.
We're still clutching on to autumn, aren't we? I'm
Just
waiting
about.
for the snow. Thanks, Christopher. Now, tonight's main news again. A man who murdered an army veteran is handed a life sentence with a minimum of 37 years. Paul Taylor was subjected to a violent attack by 20-year-old Jack Crawley, who was described in court as a highly dangerous young man.
Done the very best I can for the club. And
Duncan Ferguson is sacked as the manager of Inverness Caledonian Thistle. The League One side entered administration yesterday following financial difficulties. And tributes flood in for Jim McCall, Beechgrove Gardens' longest-serving presenter, who's died at the age of 89. And that is Reporting Scotland. I will have your late news around 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone on the team, enjoy your evening. Good night.